Happy Friday, everyone. The Ascension cycle on Friday is the 6th day of a creative ascension cycle. Now, to feel that inside of your body is as simple as understanding how luteinizing hormone works. And also hormones like estrogen, progesterone, to understand the lunar cycle and how the 5 elements are all connected. So the lunar cycle is where we reset fertility. And to begin to understand your elemental type is as simple as getting an upgrade in bioenergetic medicine. And so every day we have a brand new cycle. And all week long we are harvesting. What does that mean? It means that we are focused on revelation, watching the fractal world, which is the field, the intentional field that we've been holding you in all these years that we've known you. There's 2 intentions, remember, and you can hear in the language if there's split consciousness. Now, if you've been integrating the miasmic shadow and using the tools that were provided when you came on a healthcare pilgrimage to Colorado, then likely you're remembering that when we look at the 6 phases of disease that are at the roots of Western medicine, which is, the roots of Western medicine is Germany. And people don't understand medical history, they just have an opinion about things. And so as we build the bridge, that's what we've been doing with the Unified Medicine Institute. We're not saying there's one model of medicine that is better than the other. They all have a purpose and they fit together in a beautiful way. Nobody does diagnostics like the United States. It's beautiful. And when we can get the basic pattern through a label, whatever the diagnosis is, then you can apply simple charts to come back to life, because this is based in the design of the body. This is, the body heals the same way it develops. Inside out, top down. But the part that people miss is the child development, which is the vertical integration. And the only way that we can provide this for children is if parents do it first. And so what does it require? Well, you start surfing cycles, okay? It means we want to attune our bodies in a state of bliss. So to do that, there must be a willingness to finish your life backward. And what that means is when you have your vibrational code, when you know your vibes, and they're based in ancient wisdom and understanding how the glandular system, the lymphatic system, the plexus centers, here's the solar plexus, gonads, gonadal plexus, adrenal plexus, so this is the water element, solar plexus, fire, right? Yep. This is the thymus plexus. Some people would say it's the heart plexus. But this is actually behind the thymus gland is the launch place for lucid dreaming. And I'm one of 3 of the eldest granddaughters of Merlin. And when we begin to participate in seeing the fractal world unfold, life becomes quite funny. Now, many of you know that I've been standing behind the veil since March of 2020. And what that means is that as we moved into the pandemic cycle where it had actually shown up, we knew it was coming. It's related to 9/11. We know that miasm is a mass genetic mutation. And what's behind it at the core is mass shock. And what is mass shock? It's people falling more deeply into amnesia. And so it's beyond trauma. And so if we look at the ACEs score, and those of you working in mental health know that there is a trauma score, and you can identify childhood trauma, locked up trauma by looking at the ACEs score, but it focuses mainly on 3 things: a solid home, place to live. So when I say home, that's family. A place to live and a purpose, a way to express purpose. And right now, there aren't households that provide that. Is this random? No, it isn't. When we understand I'm actually supposed to be recording a video for a lost boy who is actually born in 1962, but every human on this plane are children. We're all children of light, all of us are. And so if we come to every day in a state of childlike wonder, we'll be able to come to our knees, right? Because that's Capricorn, the knees. Did you know that? And the shins, that's Aquarius. So if you love the 11, it's connected to the 11th house, the 11th nerve. A double 1 is gonads, right? Because we know that here's the first dimension, here's the second dimension, here's the third dimension, 4th, 5th. So this is the Hall of Records right in here. And to get there, we have to activate the thymus gland. And from there, all you have to do is intend. And that means, well, we've got the steps for you so that we don't have to get into it right now. If you have 6 code, the 6th dimension is locked. And here's the key. The laughing key is the thymus gland below. So how does the body develop? Inside out, top down. Just think about, we've got a clump of cells that ends up folding over to form the gastrula, which is a hole down the center of a sphere. Here's a sphere right here. And a hole forms right in the middle. And what that becomes is, here's the mouth up here, and down here is the anus. All right? And so as we begin to understand that that gastrula right through the center is the spine, right? Which is the divining rod. This is where everything, all the organs and systems are formed from the inside out, inside this tube. And so the first thing to form is the solar plexus. And then from that buds the brain. And we know this because we know about serotonin. And so everything inside this tube, that's considered the mucosal lining. And it's the neuroendocrine system. And right now it's not activated because the collective is in duality, in amnesia. And we're here to jumpstart the collective, to help you to know that lucid dreaming is also connected to your ability to help people transition in a full way. Not only by reading the codex so that you can bear witness to their gifts in brand new ways that bring back memories that evoke such joy, but at the same time, we can even get into medical astrology, which is all about 5 elements. And you can look at the codex to understand why someone would transition so suddenly. And these conversations allow ascension to happen for the ancestry, and it brings roots together every time someone goes through a transition. We're no longer seeing it as death. So gastrula is the first step, and so what ends up coming after that is, once the child is born, they have a great big head and a little tiny body, right? And they've got the cross, which is the arms. Oops. Let's see if that stays up, because I've got my phone in the ring too. They've got the arms and the legs. And the arms and the legs are radiant. They're actually imprinting the field nonstop. And people don't understand this. They think that when they stand on the land, they're supposed to absorb from Mother Earth, but they're not. We have to start thinking of ourselves as acupuncture points, and to understand that when a child is born and they've got that great big head, they're a seed. They're a star seed. And so the second womb is the first 12 years of life, which is connected to the 12 cranial nerves, the 12 houses of the zodiac, the 12 archetypes. We want to look at all these unique dynamics. We've got the luminaries and the planets, and those are very much connected to 5 elements, because we know that Earth, connected to ears. It's all about the water. We know that EU, it's all water. And so as we begin to understand the flow of water and the light moving through it, this is the circadian clock that is pulsing in the field of light. And so this week, if you've been following us on social media, my twin sister and I, our older sister is on the bridge, and so she transitioned back in 2007, and I had gone to Georgia to study neuroscience, and I was heading up a practitioner support division in a therapeutic grade remedy line. And the practitioner support was all about being able to share what we had been doing in our clinic. But the thing that I wanted to study was I got to do phone calls with healthcare practitioners all over the world. And the topic was looking at a neuroendocrine panel. And we had collected the labs through urine and saliva. Not urine and saliva, just saliva. We did the Barnes axillary test for 28 days, things like that. And we would collaborate on these really tough cases that they had, where the person had developed some kind of an autoimmune condition. And 100% of the time, if we focused on opening the ground matrix regulation system first, that means aligning the autonomic nervous system, which is the neuroendocrine system, which is nerves, neurotransmitters, and the endocrine system, which is the hormones. Do you know that all hormones are made from cholesterol? Every single hormone. it converts to pregnenolone, and then the entire hormone tree cascades from that. Now, if someone has adrenal fatigue, which is what we immediately saw was epidemic around the world, not just stage 1, stage 2, but stage 3 adrenal fatigue, which means the adrenal glands aren't even functioning in the light cycle at all. And it's a death spiral because those adrenal glands, they are the triangle that sits on top of the kidneys, and they move with the daily light cycle, ascension cycle. And so my sisters and I and our brother, we're all water elements. And we really, really can't leave this flow system. We've got a way that we get up in the morning. Our dad was in the Navy, which is so connected to Neptune. And if you understand that the three of us are born in the mystic days of March, and we are the granddaughters of Merlin, and we do have roots from Glastonbury. And so we are the granddaughters of Merlin. And we're here to bring the crystalline codex. And if you don't know what the crystalline codex is, then we have to go in and look at the Templars. Because the Templars was a group of people who put a temporary Templar, temporary temple. This temporary system was put in place while humans fell from grace. And so we're in the process of awakening, which means letting your pathways fill with light. It means coming through the developmental cycle all the way through. Just think about beam me up, Scotty. The only way that we can start the vertical integration process is if we heal the scar tissue from the feet up, because that's the way child development works, all right? It also means that you begin to feel the rhythm within the circadian rhythm, because this is the heartbeat of the earth, and we're all electromagnetic, all of us. And so you're about to build the bridge to sovereignty. For those of you that are called, what's required, you've got several ways to get started here. But what I wanted to share, so at any point you can download the crystalline codex, and for a short period of time we're doing research, which means that we actually decode it for you by doing your code, so that you can see how it lays out in the hologram, which you basically begin to understand your multidimensional gifts. And when you link it to your family, you will be blown away. So let me go over this family that I attracted at the beginning of August, 8/1 to be exact. And what's very interesting is if you look at your birth year, and you code it out, and so from now on when I say code it out, you just want to add up the single digits, okay? If we do my birth year, which is 1962, and it's also my twins' birth year, it codes out to an 18 because we've got 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 2. It's an 18. Now, in order to finish the wave, we need to code that out, okay? But as we start to look at code, we want to start to see this rainbow body as being a musical instrument, okay? And so anything red is right here. Anything orange is here. Anything gold, yellow, here. Right here, green. Right here, blue. Right here, indigo. Right here, violet. Okay, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8's tricky. It's the dimension of infinity, and no one that has 8 code is going to be able to tap that yet, because We actually have to let the blue and the red integrate, which means the air and the water come together in the solar plexus. That's the fire, the light. And as the three come together, it opens the thymus gland right here. And so anyone that's got 4 code or 9 code, so that's 8, and the 9 is the skull and the spine, which looks like a sword, but it also looks like a number 9. That's 9. And so if you've got 9 code, you're not going to be able to tap that yet, because you have to encompass all of the dimensions below, because this is the water, and this is where we connect through the feet so that we can actually feel the electromagnetic pulse moving through our spine. And in that, we put our full attention on our body as being a vessel for the multi-sensory world, understanding that our noggin is an antenna that buds. And you'll see in our videos, in our certification classes, that when we walk you through embryology, this is going to become such a fun game, because we're basically gonna vertically integrate this falling water, which is why we have rainbow bodies. But as we bring it together and shift to the inside out, we start to realize that every single person has a purpose, and we fit together like a big puzzles. And so if you've ever loved to do puzzles, the crystalline codex is for you, and it basically is you revealing your family's codex. Remember the code of honor or the coat of arms for each family? So let's go back to the Templars. When we fell from grace and the temporary systems were put in place, there was the judicial system. All of these systems were put in place, and they were based in the cuneiform, which is the Rosetta Stone, which are the principles of light, the pure principle. And so as these systems for this duality were put in place, this outside-in system, eventually the Templars, as we fell deeper and deeper into amnesia, the Templars divided. And there were those that held the pure principle and those that burned them at the stake. And so some of the patterns that you see relative to this, all of them have to do with shock. And shock is falling into the next level of amnesia. And while people know that we are in the ascension process, they're, reading the ancient texts and symbolism and all that, if they don't know the difference between duality and unity, they're the walking dead. And we took an oath to do no harm. And so one of the things that we see is families being led to slaughter by corporations and product sales companies who are educating our physicians. And many of these physicians, like my colleague, Richard Gerber, MD, went through the current educational system provided for Western medicine here. And some of them have a medical history class and some don't. They just start right at the beginning of the Flexner report, which is all about giving a doctor an algorithm to follow. And so, but what they don't do is actually support a physician to walk someone through a healing process. So they have to do continuing ed classes outside of their educational institution or their medical board. And many of these are approved, ours is. So Richard Gerber wrote the book Vibrational Medicine, because when he got through med school, he said, this is a ripoff. I didn't learn how to actually apply my pre-med skills. So we're bringing it all the way back around to family education, which is where I started in the first place as a young mom, was preschool education, child development, teaching parents and child care providers how to actually use this to put together a weekly schedule, to put together a calendar, to put together a preschool curriculum, to set up 13 functional learning areas so that we covered all of the 12 cranial nerves. So much of the research that we did there was me looking at the design of the child as they came through. So as an identical twin, I see them as crystals. And when I see the crystal, it's a rotating torsion field. It looks like an orb. And smack down the middle is a scepter, which I've always seen as the sword and the stone, this is the symbol of the medical caduceus. And so the crystalline code that we're doing, I may go an hour with this. People have been attempting to get me to do little snippets, but this is Friday. And we are in the middle of August, and I am sitting in the middle of a family who believes wholeheartedly in chemistry. And I have been basically held hostage via the bridge. All right, so my older sister, Michelle, is a facilitator. Now, she was born on March 20th, 1961. And if you do Michelle's code, the life purpose number, which if you look that up, you'll get the history if you keep going through it. It's been passed on multi-generationally, but when we look at vibration or numbers, that's what we're actually doing. We're getting a frequency. And so if you take the frequency of someone's birthday and you add it up, my older sister is a 22. And if you look at her fertility code, the way that she connects through a 28-day fertility cycle, it's a 20. And so her code is actually 2022. And when we look at her legacy is the name on her birth certificate, okay? Everyone, that's a written document. And we know the written and the spoken word actually, if you understand the way that the universe works, they are you could call it a contract, but it's more of an elemental key that you can unlock. So what's written on her birth certificate adds up to 71, which if you code that out, it's an 8, right? And so my sister is on the bridge, which is 4. She's sitting here because if we look at the sum total of her birthday, which is 22, the 22, that's the adrenal gland mastery number. So she's an incarnate master, 22, goddess of fertility, if you could see her. She went through the needle's eye, actually, with the Western medicine model. She died of iatrogenic disease. And so we can talk more about that later, but she's facilitating. And this family that she brought through came through a man who is 36 years old, and he had just transitioned right here in Colorado. And he immediately came through a man that I met in downtown Littleton. And his mother was there. And so we sat down and did the code, and the shocking revelation that happened as we looked at his family's codex. So he's a non-believer. He's closed-minded, doesn't believe in life after death, believes that that people can be addicted to something, but has his own addictions with other things that are compromising for the fact that he's avoiding one thing and using something else that he deems more suitable, and all the while in denial that he's got. His code is 0328, which is a 10, And then his legacy is 8-2, which is a 10. And so Michelle brings this guy through, and when we do his vertical code, which if you go back and you think about what I was talking about relative to inside out, the vertical code gives us your mucosal lining. It gives us basically your blueprint for your gift for the world. And that vertical code actually helps us to unlock your health constitution. And we don't do it, you do it. It's that this is how easy this is, because you want to start thinking about the Knights of the Round Table. That's exactly what we're talking about. This is a tensor field. And the measure and the twisting of this copper, this is actually gold, silver, and copper. And copper is the element for water. It's the kidney element. You'll see it on your chart of homotoxicology in phase 1 and phase 6. And so if there's cancer, phase 1, that's excretion, right? Which is also the first dimension. And then cancer is phase 6, which is the pineal gland. And reverse polarity happens. So this tensor field is something that I'm sitting in an urban clinic in Littleton with all of the EMFs and the whole bubble of invisible electromagnetic pollution that people are so sensitive to, and they don't realize it because they're medicated. And as we set up the home environment to where it's sacred space by using copper rods like this, do you want to just run out and buy this one? No, it might not be right for you. The 7 is Saint Germain's ring. And so when I say Saint Germain, this is violet. And so you see me sitting in this with a indigo hat, right? On Friday, and it's not random. So we're here to bring information about fertility back to humans, and we start by evolving what we were teaching you about finding your why. You remember that? Where we had you do the Benjamin Franklin and you figured out what you liked and what you didn't like. And then we watched what you did with that information. And what we noticed was there was a denial about the stuff that you didn't like and a focus on the things that you did like. And so it created more duality. But what we were looking to do was to have you take the parts that you didn't like and integrate your miasmic veil, your shadow, which it has to do with your genetic mutations. We have the ability to integrate the patterns from our ancestors. And we know this because of German diagnostics. In Germany, France, in many countries, they recognize electrodermal screening, the endoderm, the germ layers. This is where we can actually tap in to the 3 layers of woven tissue. That's all there are, 3 braided layers of tissue: ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Okay? Outer, inner, and then the meat between. And so right here, the endoderm is the first part of what we want to activate, because you want to start actually living in the alpha and omega. And so think orgasm, because orgasm is really the creative cycle, and there's ups and downs. It's not about, a false positivity where you're constantly standing erect, pointing towards the positive and in denial of the shadow. It's like a rocket that's tethered, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to run out of juice. And that's what people believe in right now. So this on 8/1, and so if we look at the code for August 1st, and we go back and we look at the calendar for August 1st, I have written right there, spleen season begins. I have this written on August 1st, and this was the day I met this man that Michelle brought to me, and this man's family has not left since the 1st. And so I'm speaking to him today because his code is an alchemist. And he's refusing to come to his senses. They are mourning the loss of this John, who is here with his grandmother, Marla. Interesting. And we've got a similar, she's an alchemist, so she's born on the 26th, just like our mother, Grandma Shirley. And if you don't know her, Grandma Shirley, a 26 is not easy because it's adrenals, pineal. Okay, when I say pineal, I'm talking about the third eye is actually made up of the same tissue as the eyeballs. And it's what connects with the rhythms and cycles. This is the seat of melatonin. But we can't make melatonin until we open up serotonin. And so we need to use mushrooms. Mushrooms are the key to reestablishing the endoderm. All right, so the endoderm, think it looks like the head and the spine. It looks like a mushroom. So there's a head on it and a spine. And so anything mushrooms is going to be very, very helpful, but there's so many mushrooms, and we have the ability to match you to the right mushroom formulas. If you want to do alchemy formulas, which is what we focus on, it's why we went to work for energetics, but they're just one of many bioenergetic lines. You have to look at the family that's backing it, and it kind of morphed and changed. And so we kind of lost our resonance with the way that they were doing things. They just kind of moved into automating our healing template, and they're not actually helping doctors move all the way through a healing process first, which they actually need to. We can't teach what we don't know. And so many of the lost children that I've been attracting lately, just remember that my oldest son, my sons, I have 2 of them, their life purpose, if you add up the digits in their birthday, they're 20 months apart. They both have a cardinal birth chart, which means the oldest one has the horizontal. So sun in Aries, moon in Libra. And what is this? These are the luminaries. And so the sun and the moon are actually what are in control of all life. And so when you have them in a certain house, it's there's a pattern related to it. And there's also a gland related to it. My younger son is the vertical cross. No, he's the horizontal. So Scotty, horizontal, and Stephen, straight up and down. So Capricorn, sun, and Cancer, moon. And they are integrating the brotherly love patterns because they are the grandsons, the great grandsons of Merlin. And they're the firstborn grandsons. Well, Anthony is born right in the middle. And and then there's Michael and Matthew. And so the 5 of them are a dynamo. A dynamo. The interesting thing is Scotty and Stephen, if you add up their birth numbers, they are a 34, 7. So I say 34.07 because that's how you code it out. 3 plus 4 equals 7, but then you have to go in and put it on the musical notes because we're in a universe. And so 34, oh my goodness, it starts with the belly, the sucker punch. And the 34 can't crack open the thymus gland unless you've got water element sisters, and not sisters but mothers who are identical twins. And so us being the water element, and we're both born on the 5th, so Diane and I together are 55. We're the media mastery. We're here to bring information to families about how to actually provide 5 elemental fertility support, the sacred womb, the second 12 years for your children. And so here in Colorado, we're setting up the Colorado Harvest Festival. It's been being created since I got back here. And part of that has to do with the fact that the mental health field has moved into the plant-based. Instead of using the SSRIs, we're returning to nature. So like the magic mushrooms open up the serotonin pathways, replenishing serotonin nutrients, which actually allows individuals to make melatonin. And when they make melatonin, they can begin to sleep at night, which means the repair cycle and the anti-aging cycle will start to kick in, okay? And so one of the things that we highly suggest is that you get off of your uppers and downers, your coffee, and how do you do that? You transition over to therapeutic grade cannabis. And we approve therapeutic grade cannabis. You don't want to buy anything else. There are companies that will sell through recreational that are therapeutic grade. And one of them, you want to look for Ascend Cannabis Company. Just think about Ascension, because that's what it's for. All things in moderation. My family is bringing the end to addiction consciousness by giving the crystalline codex to you so that you can understand how you and your siblings fit together, that your life is not random. And so as we are looking at this code that Michelle wants me to get on with, so on Monday, the 1st of August, spleen season began, all right? And so if you see this is 5 elements right here. But summer is these 2, okay? And so this is the first half of summer, heart, small intestine, and this is the second half of summer, which is the spleen, stomach, pancreas, okay? That's when the worry comes out, the worry season. And so a cross quarter day is halfway in between summer solstice and fall equinox, or halfway in between winter solstice and spring equinox, which is Groundhog Day, interestingly enough. So 2/2 is a very, very intense time, because just a few days after that, in February, by the time we get to the 15th of February, that is the spiritual alchemist. And whatever you've been doing since winter solstice is going to be a buildup from whatever happened during the fall equinox, which is actually autumn. It's supposed to be the harvest. And so as we're putting the system back in place, this is the daily cycle right here. And here you can see how the organs and systems are connected through the germ layers of tissue. that are creating the music that we're talking about right now. So this man, he's born in 1962, the man that I met in downtown Littleton. Actually, at Smoke and Fins is where we ended up having this conversation. And he told me that his 36-year-old nephew had died the day before. And then he proceeded to tell me how, but basically he fell down the stairs and had a immediate, there were blows to the front and the back of his head. If you are an alchemist, don't climb stairs. Move into a ranch house. If you're not willing to, all right? Because some of you are actually opening the way for the vertical integration of alcohol, marijuana, whatever it is that you're using. If you can actually look at the why for using it. So this man that I met, he's born on July 3rd, 1962. Okay, so I've been meeting all kinds of 1962 people. And if you go backward and you look at our history with our healthcare practitioners worldwide, right after the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012, we started having people look at vibrational code. And the reason for that is vibrational medicine is vibrational code. We're actually talking about the autonomic nervous system, the light cycle, frequency, 5 elements, how the invisible becomes visible, and being able to decode all of it, whether we're reading a liver panel or it doesn't matter. But the easiest way to get to the root cause and to look at family shadow and to be able to open up this dual pattern that's happening right now in the middle of this is the cosmic clock. All right, and so the polarized condition of the Aquarian age, remember this is Shins, and so you actually have to come to your knees. This is Capricorn, Aquarius, and then you're sitting on your feet. It's why yoga is so awesome. If you can sit on your feet, but you can also do some of this where you're sitting in between them. This allows your torso to be cradled in your brain, literally, because that settles into the feet. So if you've got 0 code, like ours is 05, and then my legacy is, my name on my birth certificate is 55. And it's why I've been calling myself the village crazy lady since I was little, really. And the reason for that is, as a young child, I was very aware of this toroidal field, of the rotating torsion field, seeing people's sword in their stone, and the stone is the stony thymus gland, the stony heart. So to be able to pull the sword from the stone, we have to bring people into the presence of orgasm, which is opening up the mucosal lining. And the plant that is designed to do that is marijuana. But you don't want to just run out and start buying it. In fact, the green rush here is a problem. We've got a lot of people that are manic because they have transferred from the smoking flower that was laced with paraquat into good flower, and then moving into the vape pen so that they can hide it. But the problem is that a lot of these vape pens, the oil has been processed in a very toxic way, and so it will start to destroy their thyroid, and that's what's happening with this man that I met, okay? So let's just go through his code really fast. And you've got your 3 numbers, so let's just walk through this together. So he's born on July 3rd, 1962. And so the first number we look at to understand his lunar cycle is the day of birth, which is the 3rd. All right. And then we take that and we put it on the body. It's 0, right? Feet rising up to the solar plexus. And so he actually has to ground his adrenal glands and his gonads to make the connection for the number 3. It's not easy to have that as a, especially if you don't have the codex, and especially if you have any kind of scar tissue in your reproductive organs. And most men do. A lot of women who have given birth do. Episiotomy scars, 4th degree tears, the C-section scars. Even if it's just a tiny little hole, it's still, how about the piercings? Yes. All of those are going to block the conception vessel. All right? And it is a pathway. Everybody talks about walking down the pathway and being on a journey. All right, so we've got the first part of his code is 03, okay? And so you got that musical note. You can actually take the colors of the chakra system, which are the halos for the glandular system that's pulsing in the light cycle. And we already know that he's got the mark of the golden child, the golden age, the 3. But to have that as your first number as a man is very, very difficult. When we look at the, if you were raised in the circadian clock and you understand a 7-day creative cycle adds up to a 28-day fertility cycle, then it would be okay to have that code. But he doesn't have that. And then to top it off, when we add up the numbers in his birth certificate, it adds up to 28. Okay, so that's, again, the adrenal glands. Oh no. Because if there's no awareness of the electromagnetic field and the light cycle and how to get off the gravy train of the time cycle, the only way to become enlightened is to return to the light cycle and to be able to integrate the time and the light cycle. So the time cycle is wants. Enlightenment is needs. And needs is the integration of the greeds. It's actually shifting your hands into providing the purpose that they were designed for, because your entire vibrational signature is shining through. So the next one is the 8, and we already know that's, that's a hot mess, because the 2 and the 8 are they're shut down. There's no way that the 8, their heart sac is going to come into alignment until the thymus gland opens. All right? And so it happens first with the thymus gland, building the bridge between the blue and the red. This has to open. And that means the return to the garden. This is the emerald forest right here. Lucky Charms, magically delicious, all of that. And so he's got the 28 code, but if we code that out, it's the mark of an alchemist. And by this time I'm going, oh shoot, I actually know what I've attracted here. What's interesting is Michelle sends him to me on 8/1, and our 1962 code is 18. And so this is all about the humanitarian cycle and bringing the wise elders together. So I've got his family here. Now I know his life purpose is a sexual healer, but he's not going to be able to do anything until women bring him on. And it brings me right into my lunar node, which is 8. Awareness of sacred secretion, sex, sacred secretion, generative connection, the end of death consciousness, and awareness of alchemy, sex, death, and transformation. All right? We are the alchemists. And so he's drawn to me because Michelle knows I can help him. And she knows that she can help his nephew because his nephew was under high doses of alcohol when he transitioned. And our bloodline is very similar. We have the same mom. She's got the 26-8 code. So now we know that here's her son. He's an alchemist. He needs to be ignited by an alchemist woman. And when we do his name to look at his legacy, guess what? It's 82. And so again, it's the same, but now it's the pericardium, grounding the adrenal glands, opens the gonads and the feet. And so he's basically here to be ignited by me. And we have a major miscommunication because he works for a corporation. He's believing in the 65 retirement cycle, and he believes in alcoholism, and yet he is sucking on the vape pens every time the negative shows up. And so he's got the dual language where he's pushing towards positivity, and he does believe that marijuana can end alcoholism because it's allowed him to be abstinent all these years. But what you avoid actually creates a void. You're passing on the genetic component, which is the belief system. And so what we have to do is get behind, why is it that Irish people tend to want a lot of alcohol? Why is it? And it's easy. They're alchemists. Where's the Emerald Forest? It's very much connected to the Knights Templar. Okay, so we've got the whole, Ireland and Wales island there that is just so incredible, and so much history and so much magic. And when you look at the ley lines, the Schumann waves, the acupuncture points that are there with Stonehenge and so many other things like that. Her bringing him into my life is not random. Now, they just had the services for John yesterday, and all week long I am reaching out to John's uncle, who's the man that I met in downtown Littleton, who I now know is an alchemist. And what's very interesting is he's got the same code as our, granddaughters of Merlin, and his first grandson is our brother, Michael Dawn. And guess what Michael Dawn's code is? He's born on the 23rd. So he's born on the 23rd, and he's born the same day as my youngest son. Okay, so he's born on the 23rd, so that 23, it's adrenals again, right? 3 cracks open the throat, and so it's the media code. My whole family has 5 code, and it's not the first time that we've jump-started the collective using our own bloodline, Merlin. Okay, we are the alchemists, and so 3 sisters and a younger brother who are all born in the water cycle, because he came in right after, the day after the winter solstice. And when he came in, he has the code of 5-10-10. And so he's a complete alchemist, but his older sisters have to open the way, because 10 code means we have to talk about sex, because there's only a staff and a circle. The Moses code, everything, all the pure principles are based in the intentional field, and actually understanding how to hold the bliss state within your family. And it means that we have to return to the round table to understand this 100%. And so here's our brother, that he's got identical code to this man that showed up on the 1st of August. Okay? And so Michael, our brother's code, is it's 23.05. And so adrenals, pancreas, feet, thyroid, voice, written, spoken, all of it. It's all about numbers, because this is the Akashic record. And we're bringing awareness of our sister sitting here. She's waiting for us to ignite. So our oldest sister, Michelle, 2022 is the year that we agreed to do this. Because if you look at it, it's 3 people on their knees bowing forward. And there's the intentional field right there. Here's Michelle. So the first 2, the circle, and then the 2 is Diane and I. All right? And so we're holding this, and Diane and I are alchemizing the shadow. We're not even able to talk right now. We've hardly been able to talk since I had to call the money grubbers out of the classroom and say no more product or device sales, that this is now sacred space just for healthcare practitioners. And they're naturally going to want the product lines that I talk about, the devices that I talk about, but we're going to match them to the right ones. We've been training on all of them, and we know that they need a comprehensive product line where we can give a microdose with a straight solid herb that has been through the alchemy cycle, so we know it doesn't even have to go through digestion, because people's digestion is so screwed. And so the microdoses, the spagirically processed herbs, and then the nutrients, we want to try to get as many as we can from the garden. But we have a handful of these alchemized whole food nutrition, because they're all spagirically processed herbs. So think about rainbow foods. We don't need the synthetic vitamins anymore, the pills and all that, although opening channels can still be helpful. So our brother Mike has, his code is 05, and then it's 28.10, and his name is 82.10. And so it's identical to this man that Michelle sent me. Our youngest brother's code is coming through this man, and his nephew is standing with Michelle and his mom, Marla. And Marla has the same code. Her first number is identical to our mother's, to Michelle's oldest daughter. It's 26. And so it's the adrenals and the pineal. Are either of those open? Is the adrenal plexus aligned? No. We've been studying neuroscience since Michelle went on her first prescription antidepressant. And she was on it because she was grieving the divorce she was in the middle of. And she never got off the gravy train. And so she's right where she needs to be, though. And we can see it in her codex, because we have a way of looking at the launch point that allowed her to get in here, which is, this is all about the red code. And yeah, it's really cool. So I'm reaching out to this man, and he's got this, I've got John, who's, I feel like Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost, where, you know, Henry the Eighth, I am. You've got Patrick Swayze, who is the deceased boyfriend of Demi Moore, and he sees Whoopi Goldberg as being someone that can connect him and get a message to her. And so he won't leave her alone. And so I've been with this family for, today's the 12th. And so we're on the second 7-day. We're actually on the first, the second 7-day cycle, because last week John transitioned on Sunday, the 31st of July. And that's, you know, genius code 3131. Now, I haven't done his code yet, so I don't know what it is. I'm actually wanting his uncle to do it with his family, because he left behind 2 small children who are very connected with him. And the grandmother Marla, has the same code as our mom. And so as I help Glenn, I'm helping my mom and my brother. And am I doing it from my own family? No, I'm doing it because God, geometry of design, reveals the code every single day. And so yesterday, before the services, before the full moon, I am doing code. And so I do his parents' code. And she's born, you know, her name is the opposite of a spiritual alchemist. It's a 51. And so the message, grounded through the gonads, opens the pineal gland. That's her legacy. And so we're actually facilitating her legacy from the bridge. And what I found out about this man that I met, who's got the same code as my brother, let's just call him the alchemist, the closed-minded alchemist. You know, he's on the, he's the third born of 4 boys. Okay, my mom has 4 children. And her 4th born child is exactly like this man. Now, my brother and I have been estranged since 2019. And that was when I was revealing the whole branch that we had added onto the Institute relative to near-death integration. I realized that Diane and like my whole family, we have had multiple near-death experiences. I surrender every day, and I greet the day in a very specific way, and it has to do with what my parents named me, 5510. And I'm now the oldest of Merlin's grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. I'm the oldest. And I'm speaking with the former oldest, Michelle, who's on the bridge right here. I've got Grandma Myrtle, Grandmother Mary, Effie. They're all right here. And so what do I do with this man? I'm reaching out to him yesterday, do the mom's code. So she's basically, when you do her life purpose number, she's born the same year as my dad, 1938, same year as my dad. And when you add up the digits in her birthday, her life purpose is identical to my dad's. So my dad is born in May, and she's born in June, and they both have 35. Here we have the thymus gland again, you guys, 30. So the gut speaks, 35, opens up the 8, so it's 8 again. And so his mom's got 8 code, and 8 is world karma. She's actually taken on Earth's karma. But here's the very interesting thing. Marla has the fertility code of my mom, which is 8, and the life purpose code of my dad, including his birth year. Okay? When we do her name, it's a 6. And it is the pineal gland that has to be jump-started through alchemists. And so yesterday, I'm reaching out to this uncle for John, and I'm asking to do the codex for his other 3 brothers. And he's not responding. And last week, we had a major miscommunication. He projects. And so he thinks he's intuitive, but the way that he intuits is to divide things into piles. And he thinks it's intuition because he feels better when he pushes it away or compartmentalizes it into positive and negative, which is the whole BS of, law of attraction. That is the pure principle twisted from the outside in. And we saw Kathy Manning actually manifest the hot springs up in the mountains last year. We saw her do it back in 1987 by using the law of attraction. And she actually created a hell of a ripple effect for the whole thing. And so what's very, very interesting was when he didn't respond to me, and, you know, rightly so, he's with his family and all that, but they're, you know, missing the cycle here because the mom transitioned, Marla transitioned not very long ago. And so we went ahead and did the father's code too, and he's born in 1935. But what's interesting is he's a Sagittarius, just like my mom is. And when we do his code for his name, it's identical to Grandfather Merlin. You can't make this up. And so it's a 79. His legacy, his name, is just like Grandfather Merlin. And so we can actually help jumpstart the collective by these two families coming together right now. And that's how big of a cycle this is. And so I'm finally able to talk about some of this. When I look at this, his father's fertility code, it's 23, just like my brother. Okay? And so he's got the 23 code, just like my brother. And he's got the 79, which is the 16 code, because 7 plus 9, so 7. It's all head. It's violet and white. And so the 79 codes out to be the gonads and the pineal. You're screwed, because the 1 and the 6 is actually the sexual awakening code, because that's what opens up the 7 levels of heaven, which is related to Sanat Kumara, who is also known as the Christ light, because when we have the violet flame appear, we know there's alchemy that's happening, and there's a shift from burning base metals, which is what's got us caught in polarized state, is base metals. And so as we begin to shift back into the light cycle, we bring the golden age. And what this means is that we need to give each human their crystal and codex so that they actually will never divide on their inner child, ever. And whatever it is that they're doing, whatever trauma and shock and pain that they're going through, it's related to their glandular system, because the miasm is the shadow. Shame. And so the shadow shows up as emotion. And to come to our senses, we have to move from an emotional language into a feeling language. So here's the emotion, shame. It's really fear. And fear is faith in the unknown. There is no other feeling other than fear, except for love. Okay, fear is a block in the flow. And so shame ascends to blame, ascends to guilt, ascends to manipulation, ascends to blah, 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 outcasting, compartmentalizing things. And it ascends to cancer, right? Building tumors instead of galvanizing things and seeing how it all fits together. And then you got the 7 up here, which is death. It's, you're dead to me. And so as we integrate the shadow, there's a reason why there's been this electromagnetic social media. It's led up to this point for us to begin to shift. So last night when I did not hear, I actually ended up meeting another lost child. This man had a left knee problem. I developed one shortly after. But his code, the first number is 15, of course. The opposite of this man who's got John and his mom are right here bringing this new dude to me. And when you do his purpose, it's 25-7, which is the same as Anthony, Kathy Manning, Slim Sperling's wife, who's running the Lifelight tools. So it's a 7, okay? And same with this man's dad is also a 27. A 25.07. So what is that? Adrenals again. But adrenals, so you misspeak, it's projection. 20. So the adrenals speak and either open or close the hypothalamus, which is the vertical integration for the violet flame, which is where the 8, the pericardium, the infinite flow of light floods the brain and the spine up through the bottoms of the feet. And so there's this radiation into planet Earth that is intuitively aware that we are an acupuncture point. We will shift from environmental concerns, needing politics, needing prisons, all of that, because we can go into the prison system and completely rehab these people by making sure that they have food, that they're digging in the dirt, that they have connection with animals, that they're living in the light cycle because we've given them the crystalline codex. And so we're going to do this right here through Colorado. It's going to continue. And this man that I met last night, his code is 15, so 15.06. Spiritual alchemist, very karmic. It's his birthday. And his fertility code, because it's gonads and throat, crack open the pineal, but you can't do that until women, the water womb, comes to their senses. So his next number is 25.07, just like said man that is closed-minded alchemist. And when we did his legacy code, it is 84, just like my dad, just like Merlin, who is still in a body. So do you see how this is coming full circle? Michelle just keeps sending these people in to give me a message that we're onto a kaleidoscope that's actually coming together. And I'm supposed to just keep delivering the codex to you, delivering it, until you start to listen. Shame, blame, guilt, manipulation, control through outcasting. And so this is where the tumors are built, and the pineal is calcified, and people think they're going to open it from the outside in, but there's no way. The only way to bring the violet flame here, which is going to provide this threefold flame, which is love, wisdom, and power. Love, wisdom, and power. And wisdom is seeing the fitness of things, which is the blueprint, so that we can start to see how everything fits together. And so you can do the code. You're going to look at the day of birth. This tells us about their fertility cycle. And so if they've got polycystic ovarian syndrome, or if they get prostate cancer, it's the first number you want to go to, is the day that they're born on, because this is related to estrogen and progesterone. And so 15 code is going to be gonads, thyroid, and pineal. Okay, so straight away, he's got a karmic number. So he's not going to understand. His next number is 7, which is, it's a lightning strike. And it's the most misunderstood, because 7 only comes when we integrate these patterns by playing shadow tag. And then his last number it's a 12. Which is the student. It's 1, 2, 3. So do you see that he's got the 3 code as a legacy? And this uncle that I'm supposed to be talking to for John and his mother, Marla, is, I reach out to him this morning after doing the codex with this guy last night, knowing that I've got to hold steady with this this alchemist who's in a state of amnesia, and see it through. So he told me he was going to get a massage, and I said, that's fine, but call me back as soon as you're done. And he starts sighing. Now, you know what's interesting about that is if we look at the man that I lived with while in Dahlonega, Georgia, automating my intellectual property, he has 84 code just like my dad, okay? And he sighed just like that. He sighed just like that. So I've got these two lost boys that I'm intertwining. This week I had to bring in reinforcements because the uncle's not listening. And I'm recording this so that he can actually do the code. And so you've got that first number, the second number, you're going to add up the digits individually, and that gives you the purpose code. And then the last one is you've got to convert the numbers to Pythagorean, which means to math. And so here's how you make a Pythagorean calculator. You can even take a picture of that. Okay? And so take the numbers, the name on your birth certificate, and write it out, and then put a number for every letter and add them up individually. All right? Crystalline Codex is going to allow us, we want to send a viral message because the inner skin, the endoderm, is the place that ascension takes place through Kundalini, but we're actually bringing all parts together. If you don't know what a fractal is, look at the Mandelbrot set. You'll actually see patterns that are familiar. You'll be able to go into the garden. You'll be able to open your pheromones and become sexually mature so that we can integrate our DNA, okay? The mutations are not something that you can leave behind. It's not okay. You're not here to seek comfort over consciousness. So it's time to wake up, time to wake up, time to wake up. Bye from the Woodland family.